Little Casey and the Sunshine Band, I guess.
I know, very funky for this crowd.
Hi, everyone. Great to be here. Okay, she's an actress, writer, director, kind of a cultural icon. She created and stars in HBO's Girls, and if that's not enough, she recently launched Lenny Letter, a newsletter where there's no such thing as too much information. And you might have heard about it because for the first issue, she interviewed Hillary Clinton. We'll talk about that. Like me, she's an avid user of Instagram. I have about 131,000 followers. You have many, many, many more. And if you follow Lena, you'll also get to know her dog, Lammy. So please welcome Lena Dunham.
Thank you.
And without this man, we wouldn't be posting at all, Lena and I, and the world would be missing my hydrangeas and all their permutations, not to mention his fiancée Nicole's flip-flop, and this stray dog on a Mexican beach, also known as the very first Instagram post ever. Instagram's co-founder and CEO is among that verified group of people who have had a hand in inventing something that's changed the way we communicate. He also worked at the startup that became Twitter, in case you wanted a bit more evidence of that. So please welcome Kevin Systrom. First of all, happy 5th anniversary, Instagram.
Yay.
So it's today, by the way, so congratulations. I told Kevin my first question was going to be about the Iranian nuclear deal. And I was kidding, of course, but he did tell me that did elicit a pretty funny and interesting story.
What did I say?
You said that you were having a meeting in France.
Oh, right. So we just got back from France. We were in UK, and then we went to France, and we were meeting with President Hollande. And Hollande's people came out, and they were like, he's just going to be a few more minutes. And I said, okay, it's fine. And they were very apologetic. And they're like, he's talking with Putin right now. And I was like, I'm okay getting bumped by Putin. That's totally fine. It's totally fine. But we got to meet and take a selfie together. And I don't know. I guess that's what you do when you meet a world leader. You take selfies together.
That's what you do when you meet a world leader.
True. Fair. Most other people have intelligent discussions. I just sit there and take pictures.
No, I'm just saying you have the right to do it. You have the right to ask for a selfie with anyone you want.
Yeah, and I don't speak much French, so trying to say, like, may we have a selfie together in French was something I had to be coached on. It was good.
Well, you're lucky to be here with Lena, because seriously, Kevin, I think she is your #1 fan. And what is it about Instagram, Lena, that you find so much fun? It's really your communication tool of choice right now.
It definitely is. I like it for a number of reasons. I like it because Kevin invented it with someone else whose name I don't know. Mike.
Yes.
I like it because I love you, Mike. I love it because I think that the ability to communicate visually as well as pictorially allows for a fuller story to be told. I think that something about the presence of images the presence of images and the lack of a word limit on responses creates a kind of like healthier and slightly less toxic dialogue than you might find in other parts of the internet. And I think it's a really great tool. I mean, I'm a filmmaker, I'm a writer, I'm an actor, and this is one of the only internet mediums that I feel like allows me to sort of like express the full range of my interests. And I just think it's so much fun. I think it's so much fun, and it's like given me a better understanding of the lives of people I love. It's one of the few things I feel like exists on the internet that's actually improved my life.
And what was it about Hello? I mean, I think she should be your spokesperson, don't you? But what was it when you created the platform, Kevin? What was it that made you think this is really going to catch on? And how did you create it in the first place?
Yeah. First things first, I'll say is like when we created Instagram, we had no idea it would get this big. We just crossed 400 million users worldwide last week. 100 million of those were added in the last 9 months. And that's pretty crazy scale for a company that was founded now exactly 5 years ago. But if you zoom all the way back 5 years ago, it was Mike and I sitting trying to invent something that honestly scratched our own itch, which was communicating visually. We knew that people were going to start carrying around these phones because the iPhone 4 had just launched. And we saw, if you graphed kind of the quality of cameras on these phones over time, they kept getting better and better and better. And point-and-shoot cameras were kind of steadily increasing, but not at the same rate. So at one point there was going to be an intersection, and the phone in your pocket would surpass that of the point-and-shoot camera that you usually carried around. And when that happened, it meant that you could then take that photo and beam it anywhere within an instant. A lot of people like to say that phones got cameras, and that's the exciting revolution, but actually what's more exciting is that the camera lens got a network. The camera that you carried in your pocket was now connected, and you could share something at any moment of the day. And we now see evidence of that, like Hurricane Sandy. I mean, the cover of Time was an Instagram image. The riots in Baltimore, Devin Allen, one of our community members, took a photo and ended up on the cover of Time as well. You're seeing people start businesses. You're seeing people do sketch comedy. It's a medium that's now ubiquitous because you have a camera in your pocket. So we just happen to be in the right place at the right time for that transition to happen.
So it's a lot more than just photo sharing now. I mean, it's really a medium in and of itself. How is it? Tell me a little bit more about how it's being used in the news business.
We like to say that Instagram isn't a photo sharing business. When we got to Facebook 3 years ago, we stood up in front of the entire company, and I said, just so everyone knows, we're not a photo sharing company. And that's not because we ended up adding video. It's because I don't see photos on Instagram as photos. They're not art. I mean, in some cases they are, but really they're much more powerful. It's about communication. Each one of those is a message. And in the news business now, you can go onto Instagram, in the US at least, you can see what's trending, tap in, and you can see trending locations. So if something's happening somewhere unpredictable, whether that's a protest, whether that's a major event like Pride, when the Supreme Court made their ruling, you could tap into the banner that featured all the locations around Pride and see images coming in live at the steps of the Supreme Court. That's what we can now do, given that 80 million photos and videos are uploaded every single day on Instagram around the world.
And I think, Lena, you're so clever about the way you use it. If a picture's worth 1,000 words, you recently posted something. You were going to a Planned Parenthood event. And you said you found the perfect shirt to wear. And, you know, you're the only person I know who could make a uterus charming and even whimsical.
Thank you so much.
So is that your intention? I mean, how are you able to communicate things in sort of a less than subtle and sometimes subtle way? I mean, what do you think about before you post a picture?
I mean, I think, honestly, I was just so excited about this sweater. My sister-in-law, Rachel Antonoff, made it, and I was set to do this Planned Parenthood event in Los Angeles, and it had been for, you know, it's been a very challenging period of time for the kind of Planned Parenthood community, and it felt like everybody needed a little bit of like a dose of sass. So a black dress was not going to do the job. So I made contact with her. She sent the sweater, and it just felt like, as so many of my followers on Instagram are women, so many are women who are engaged in the battle for reproductive justice, and it just felt like a way to nod at what we were all engaging with some level of levity, and I was excited. And I have a green wall in my house now that I call my Instagram wall, because it's a great wall for doing Instagram things.
Wow. You're serious. And you also, when you interviewed Hillary Clinton recently, you used what you called...
Oh, yep, those are my boobs.
Yeah, okay.
This was because at the Planned Parenthood event, I then was asked to auction my sweater, and I thought it would get a higher price because the money was going to Planned Parenthood if I took it off right there. So I did, and it did.
How much it did? How much did it go for?
It went for $4,000, but it retails for $210. So I feel like that is a good...
I agree.
Good margin.
Yeah. But it felt weird because I took it off and I was all ready to, like, the person who'd been bidding on it was like a 55-year-old man, and I was like, cool. And then his like 15-year-old daughter came up to me, and I was like, this has all gotten really confusing.
Tell us about the Hillary Clinton interview you did, because I think it was interesting. You actually took photos from her past and called them Instagram worthy. And tell me why you decided to do it that way. And I know you got some backlash from that interview because you're a fan. And some people said you were a bit fawning. What did you make of that?
I mean, it's interesting. I was excited. I never have sort of tried to position myself. Lenny is a feminist newsletter. Our goal is, our second issue came out today, so we're still sort of letting people know what we are, but our goal is to be, a repository for many different voices, and none of them are meant to be unbiased. Like, I'm not you. I'm a very specific individual with a very specific set of values. I'm sure you are too. Katie has no values. No, but you have a duty to go in and sort of have a conversation that has some kind of journalistic integrity and weight. I asked questions that were important to me, but I never made an attempt to hide that Hillary's someone who I think would make a really rockin' president. And so I think that when I was in that dialogue with her, some people were sort of expecting some kind of journalistic distance that I've never purported to be able to offer to any kind of situation. And something I was really careful to say in the first issue of Lenny was, I'm not here to tell you how to vote. I'm telling you how I'm voting because I think it's important to share that, and I think that it's important that more public figures don't treat politics like they're only a matter that can exist in private life, and in your public life you have to somehow be this like bipartisan figure of objective figure of generosity. You can make it really clear how you think that you can make it really clear, and it's sort of your duty to make it really clear how you think this country can move forward in a healthy way that promotes equality, justice, etc. And so I think that in my conversation with Hillary, I was really clear about the fact that I loved her, while also trying to make it clear to my readers, sorry if I'm getting very defensive, that that it's important to me that they don't feel pressured. They just understand why I think she's an important figure in the landscape of feminism, over the last 30 years. But it was really, our readership is primarily young women who are sort of at that point between sort of their education and their real life, where they're trying to understand where they fit in, how they can have an impact on the world around them. And I think we're so accustomed to thinking of Hillary Clinton as a figure who has always kind of understood her place in the world. And I thought it would be a really beautiful thing for our readers to be able to understand that even this political titan had a moment where she wasn't sure what she wanted to do next. And again, a picture can be much more, I just said that to you in a really long-winded way, but when I hold up a picture of Hillary with a megaphone at a, Wellesley College rally, it tells such a clear story of someone who's trying to find their voice. And it was also really moving to see her reaction to those images, which she's not regularly faced with as she sort of moves across the campaign trail.
And to that point about that being an effective communication device, what makes a good Instagram post in your view, Kevin? What's the secret sauce?
When we started, everyone thought about it as art. So it was like, is it symmetric? Is it beautiful? Is that sunset perfect? But over time, I think we've all realized that it's about an authentic voice, or at least an authentic and consistent perspective on an account. So, we have this one user in North Korea who's one of, I think, 15 or 20 people to have a visa to be in North Korea, and he has a cell phone with a SIM card that works for transmitting to the U.S. And he uploads photos of daily life there behind the scenes in North Korea of regular people doing regular things. And the consistency of perspective, his it's unedited, it's not mass media. He's able to communicate about a culture that we wouldn't otherwise see. That's a great example of a great Instagram account because it brings us inside, it brings us backstage.
Are there some examples of bad practices that you think? I was talking to someone who knew I was having this conversation, and he said, I was follower 85 on Instagram, or I signed up the 85th person to sign up, and he said, and now I don't use it anymore because I got so sick of sunsets and cappuccino designs. And
it's because he follows me.
And I mean, and sometimes I think you do feel like I can't look at that person's cat picture again. And so are there some bad practices that you've seen that you could recommend against?
Well, there's an easy solution. It's to unfollow them. And the great thing is that there are 400 million other accounts that you can follow. And I do that sometimes. I'll go through and I'll just say, who haven't I liked lately? And then I'll try to find new people. And we have this whole algorithm that's based on a bunch of machine learning on photos you like, the types of subjects you follow, et cetera, to try to give you other things that you might want to follow over time.
The Explore page.
Exactly. Thank you. She actually works at Instagram. But we work really hard on connecting you with accounts that do interest you. Because obviously that's the one asset we have is a thriving, pretty diverse community of different perspectives.
Why is Instagram a kinder, gentler platform, do you think? I know, Lena, you don't even use Twitter anymore because you sort of were so, at least
Well,
That's what I
someone
read.
else, email my tweets to someone who tweets them. It's a pretty cool and modern system.
But you don't really check out, right?
No, sometimes I'll go to like the page of like my best friend and creative partner, Jenny. I'll like go like twitter.com/Jenny Connor and read her tweets for the last 2 weeks and be like, those were great. I miss Twitter. But at the end of the day, I don't know what it would be like for me to sign on now, but there was a period around when I released my book and around the midterm elections and when I was doing a lot of work with and for Planned Parenthood, which I still do, that where the environment became so hostile that I was just like, it couldn't possibly be okay for me to read this stuff. And then you end up kind of like looking through, trying to find one person who's like, I like you, and it's just too
Psychically depleting.
And I think that, I don't want to be like the girl who just walks around town crying about trolls all the time, but I think that the only reason I think it's important to talk about is because it's not like, it's not hashtag celebrity problems. They're trolling and bullying and verbal abuse on the internet are the cause of suicide among teenagers. They're the cause of deep depression. It's the cause of so much psychic turmoil for people who have not chosen to be in the public eye, that if I can even shed a little bit of light on what kind of effect that can have on a person who has a lot of resources, a lot of mental health resources, then I'm glad that I can.
And what is it, Kevin, do you think that creates a little bit more positivity on Instagram? Because I've noticed that on my Twitter feed, I have a lot of haters, and on Instagram, I just have a few.
Just like, I'm with you, girl.
I think there are two reasons why there's not that much negativity on the platform today. Number one is that we've invested in making sure that that's true. So when Mike and I started 5 years ago, our first hire was not an engineer, it wasn't a designer, it was a community manager. And his name was Josh, and he started, and his only job was to make sure that we got rid of people on the platform that were causing trouble, and that we weren't policing it, but we were reacting to requests. If we saw someone doing something that wasn't right, we tried to set a tone that Instagram wasn't a place for that. And that scaled over time, and we now have a very, very large team of people that react to things that people report. And we invest heavily in it. That doesn't mean we get it perfect or we get it right all the time. We do make mistakes. And nothing's ever perfect, but it's a constant battle on just making sure we maintain a really positive community. The second reason is that images are just positive. It's hard to be negative with an image. It's like people love sharing the beauty around us. There's so much beauty around us. There's so much inspiration that like people really get drawn in by visceral reactions to images. And I think that because of that, it's just a more positive medium in general.
It's maybe, things that people say to you on Twitter, they would never in a million years say to your face, obviously. So maybe it's sort of seeing the person in the photos or, among the photos. And I know, Lena, you're a big reporter, so you're really helping the system out.
I love reporting people. It's my main source of power. I love to report people. I used to love blocking people on Twitter, too. It's like...
I love blocking people.
There's no reason I should be spending so much time reporting people, except that it's just a fucking joy.
I hear you. I know, right? All right, let me, Kevin, ask you about the fact that you've banned nudity on Instagram because you said recently that you want to include younger users, and the strict guidelines limiting the content allowed on Apple's App Store, I know, is the primary reason why Instagram censors pictures of female nipples. So you said it was a tough call, and I'm just curious what you think, Lena. As an artist so comfortable taking pictures of her own body, do you think Instagram should hashtag free the nipple?
It's an interesting question. I do have a free the nipple t-shirt, but I like it because it covers my nipples when I'm out. It's weird. As a person who shows my nipples a lot, I don't feel restricted in any way. There's no part of me that's like, gosh, I needed to show my nipples last week, and I just felt so constrained. But that being said, it must have been a complicated choice. Like there's so much, artwork, creative work that involves the female form. There's the concept of women breastfeeding, wanting to share pictures of that moment. There's me in these underpants. And so I imagine that was a really complicated decision for you, but at the same time, it's like there are plenty of places to go where there isn't any form of censorship. And so it wasn't, for someone, I think a lot of people tried to sort of like get me involved in the Free the Nipple cause, and I was like, that's kind of not my, there's other stuff I'm worried about.
Yeah. Just to be clear, like nudity isn't banned on Instagram. Nudity, it comes in different shades, right? Everything from really bad porn all the way to kind of the artful stuff you're talking about. We spend a lot of time with creatives. We go to Art Basel, we meet all these artists, we spend time at Fashion Week. We spend time with these people understanding their needs, what they want to use Instagram for, and we try our best to accommodate that. But at scale, with 400 million people, with 80 million photos and videos being updated every single day, it's really hard to have the context of what this photo is uploaded in. So is this photo of a child, just a mom taking a photo of her kid, or is it some crazy person on the internet stealing pictures of kids and reposting them and saying nasty things? It's actually really hard. So there's a line between really bad porn and artistic freedom, and it has to be drawn somewhere. And we do our best to take it, to deal with the one-offs, to make it free to post as much as you can in an art form, and at the same time keep Instagram safe and positive, to your last question, a place that people of all ages want to participate. And sometimes we get it wrong, and we try really hard to have policies that allow for both. But we're not perfect, but we certainly try to be.
Have you ever considered an R-rated Instagram?
There have been discussions. Even that will come with questions of who decides what's R-rated. And at the end of the day, we're not in the business of hosting porn. That's just not our business model. It's not what I set out to do when we created the company. So we focus on people being able to express themselves in beautiful ways. And I hope that we do that for each and every person that seeks out to do that.
There's a lot of places to get porn.
Thanks.
Just letting
Thanks for the
Just
tip.
keeping you in the loop.
Okay, let's talk about video. You mentioned video earlier, and I love some of the video you've posted, Kevin. This is a cool slow-mo one from Fashion Week. Let's take a look.
I didn't realize I had the sound on. It's pretty cool, though.
Yeah, it's awesome.
The Instagram's really having an impact in the fashion world, isn't it? Tell us about that. And I know that Anna Wintour just hosted a dinner for you, I guess, in France.
Yeah.
And talked to you about how she's using Instagram, which was interesting.
The one thing we learned early on was when we said we have a big community, we didn't realize that actually we have many communities. And one of those was the fashion community. And fashion is a world of visual inspiration, creativity, and photography and video just happen to be a medium that they really take to and want to use. So much so now that if you look at the most influential figures in fashion, and frankly, the teens watch, the influencers in the teenage world, you've got Gigi Hadid, you've got Kendall Jenner, you've got all these people who are basically the stars of today are all in the fashion world. And Instagram has kind of become the center for them to express themselves, whether it's their daily life or a picture on the runway. And I think there's just this natural kind of compatibility between the two worlds. So we've invested heavily in making sure we understand the needs, the wants, et cetera, of the fashion world. And I just came back from Paris where I took that photo. And it was pretty awesome to see a community embrace Instagram as their platform. So we're just the platform. We try to make it awesome, and they use it for great things.
I can't have Lena here without running a clip from Girls, and then we're going to use that as a conversation starter. So
Oh, great.
Let's run the
Thank
clip.
you.
We need to find out every possible detail about this rando hussy immediately.
My laptop's in my bag.
Okay. What's your name again?
Mimi Rose Howard.
Ew, of course it is. Mimi-Rose space Howard.
I don't know if I want to do this. I don't want to be this woman Googling person.
Okay. Rhode Island School of Design, 2007 BFA.
BFA in what?
Fine arts, whatever, with an emphasis on sculpture. Wait, holy shit. Mimi Rose Howard, visiting artist keynote address?
Wait, okay, I want to see this.
You know what? I don't think that we should watch this.
How many of you remember your first love? Hands. Yes, me too. When I was 9, I fell in love for the first time. The minute I saw Peter, I knew he would be mine.
Okay, you know what? We're not watching this. It was a bad idea.
No, I
And
want to finish it. I need to finish
think
it.
that it's not a good idea.
I need to finish
I think
it,
it's not a good
Shoshana.
idea. I think that no!
I think that that clip illustrates how you can really find out everything about anyone through social media and this digital footprint. And I'm just curious, Kevin, you know, there was a lot of talk about people oversharing. And is there a move towards people wanting more privacy now? And are you seeing that reflected at Instagram?
It's hard to tell over time, like social trends like the need for privacy or whatever, but we see data that suggests that more and more people are private over time as they join Instagram. And I think that, you know, while they're more private, I think they also share more to a smaller group of people. And Instagram continues to be the platform that a lot of people choose to express themselves very freely, whether they're private or not. But I think, you know, we'll continue to see more sharing over time. But people kind of learn the nuances of platforms. They learn what works, what doesn't work, what they like to share, what they don't like to share. And I think we're all learning together. I mean, these platforms have only been around for 10 years at the most. So these are the early days, and I'm not sure we know what the equilibrium is.
What have you learned, Lena, about what to share, what not to share? Have you changed kind of what you're posting?
You know, it's interesting. Not to bring this all back to my feminist agenda, but something about the term oversharing has always been challenging for me because I feel like it's something that is really gendered and often applied to women and often applied to the idea that you're like, as a female, you're spilling your guts all over everybody, and it's like the term too much information literally makes me want to pull my hair out, and I feel like it's like the same critical, I mean, I'm not equating myself to either of these women, but it's the same kind of like critical rhetoric that was aimed at like Sylvia Plath or Anne Sexton and like used to devalue what they did as women expressing themselves. It's the same kind of rhetoric that's aimed at female memoir. It's like, and so I feel like when I get sort of too much information response or your oversharing response, it almost makes you want to go further, only because I feel as though there's this like essential bias towards women sharing the details of their life, and that until we overcome that, we're not going to be in an equal and healthy gender dialogue. And so that's, oh, thank you. Thank you. So I guess
I'm not sure if I buy oversharing as a gender issue necessarily.
Well,
I mean, I think
I think
there are all sorts of people who maybe just tell you too much, and maybe that sort of, I think, indicates that they think they're more interesting than they are at times.
There's definitely people who are like sharing too many food pictures or whatever,
Yeah.
but I do feel like a lot of times when something like appears, you know, like when a guy like is like, guys, I need to let you know I'm going to rehab, and everyone's like, that dude's so brave. And then a girl's like, I've been going through some really weird stuff with my body, and everyone's like, leave me alone. And I've just really seen it in action, and I could probably like write a college thesis on it, but I don't want to. And I think, of course, there are the instances that you're talking about, but I just see like the TMI oversharing label placed so much on, you know, a female comedian when we all want to hear about Larry David's carpool. So like, what is up?
Yeah. Let me ask you about sort of the use of social media, and Instagram obviously being a big part of it now because of so many users. Yesterday, CNN released a poll that shows high schoolers check social media 100 times a day. There was a poll not too long ago that I often cite when I do commencement addresses that asked teenagers, if something happens and you can't share it, did it really happen? And 55% say no. Sherry Turkle, who's a professor at MIT, recently wrote a book that gave concrete proof that technology has reduced empathy in young people. So, in fact, she cites a 40% decline in empathy among college students since the year 2000. So are we losing something essential in our society by being so tethered to our devices and by living so much of our life in a virtual space rather in a reality space?
I don't know. First of all, I don't know how one measures empathy that
I had the
accurately.
same question. I was like, college students are so weird and maybe have never had that much empathy.
It's like an empathy meter. It's unclear.
I mean, you should look at her book because it's interesting, and I think it's because there's less kind of emotional intelligence gathering because you have a less face-to-face interaction with people, and then it's harder to read visual cues.
Right.
I mean,
ergo
we definitely believe you.
communicate
You're
with them.
Katie Couric, and we're not. We believe you.
No, but you know what I mean? I think she actually did quantify it pretty scientifically.
I'm sure there's something to that, but like as a counterpoint, like teens today can experience other cultures that they would have never experienced. They have access to information. They can take courses online that they would have never been able to take otherwise. I'm sure there are side effects to technology being accessible by anyone of any age. Whereas like when we grew up, basically you had a cell phone and you played Snake, right? Yeah. But today, like you can open up your phone and look up a word you don't know. You can browse images of a distant culture. I mean, there's so much power to that I think the pros far outweigh the cons.
I also think it's so easy to talk about the evils of the internet, and it's definitely something that like 60-year-old male novelists love to do. And I think that
I agree.
It's easy to discuss it, but at the same time, it's also allowed for these resources that never existed. I mean, women can report domestic violence from their homes.
Yep.
Women can find out ways to rescue themselves from abusive situations. Sexual assault survivors can find community. People struggling with suicidal thoughts can find a place to go. Like when I was 13 years old, I was able to go onto the Obsessive Compulsive Disorder Foundation website and figure out what was wrong with me and find a doctor in my area when I was too scared to tell my very loving parents exactly what was going on with me. And so I think it's easy to like list the litany of ways that it's distanced us from each other, but I think it's also saved so many people. And I see that dialogue on my own. Like a couple weeks ago, that underwear picture, I was talking about some issues that I was experiencing hormonally and sort of just the internal conflict of sort of being female with a body, and like the way that women generously spoke to each other and offered each other suggestions. It was really moving and it sort of made up for all of the bullshit that you have to deal with every day.
I mean, I think it's definitely a mixed bag. I mean, but it's fair to really examine the pros and the cons of the medium. I think we can start taking questions from the audience, and as people approach the microphone, the other thing that I wanted to ask you all about, and again, it's a negative thing about this, but I think it's worth mentioning because a friend of mine said she was driving in her car, she heard her sons in the back seat talking. One was 9, one's 12, one's 9, and one of them said to the other, "Hey, you're going to take that photo down." And he said, "Why would I take it down?" And his brother said, "Because it's only gotten 12 likes." And I know that there are, you do hear among, especially young teenagers, really validating themselves with likes and comments on their Instagram posts. Is that something that you think about in terms of kind of measuring your self-worth through likes or external validation?
I think that's one dimension of the Instagram experience, but there's so much more to it. I mean, the fact that like an 18-year-old girl can like follow Lena and like understand that there are people who are very famous that have the same kind of, thoughts and issues, et cetera, and relate, like that's far more powerful than worrying about how many likes someone gets. Of course, people worry about that. I wouldn't say it's a dominant factor, but there's so much good to being connected, especially, folks who are in high school who like don't get exposed to the same amount of ideas and culture that than a lot of other people do. And I just think, I think it makes their lives better over time.
I do have to say, I had a 9-year-old Instagram bully.
A
You did?
9-year-old? Well, we're
went
going to
to-
kick him off because the minimum age is 13.
Well, it was a she, and she may be a genius, so you might not want to, but I went to her page. This person was like, "You're a whore," but whore was like horribly misspelled. And I was like, I just need to see what's up. And it was truly like a 9-year-old chilling in her house, doing fake British accents, eating chicken nuggets, hanging with a cat. And I was like, I'm not mad at you.
So you didn't report her?
No, she's a genius. If you have the wherewithal as a 9-year-old to find me and call me a whore, I'm all about you.
Let's take a question. Hi.
Hi. So if you're getting direct messages from 9-year-olds on Instagram, there are a lot of 13, 14, 15-year-olds who are posting stuff online, and right now it never goes away. And you can do a lot of stupid things when you're 13, 14, 15 years old. And the European Union is having this push for a right to be forgotten on the internet. Do you guys think that that's something that should be part of the internet experience coming up, where you do something stupid when you're 9, like calling you a whore, that doesn't have to come back to haunt her when she's applying for a grant and you're the judge on it?
So
Well, I would give her the grant.
two things. One is that there's actually a trend in teens on Instagram that they actually delete older content of themselves, and we ask them why, and they say, oh, that's me when I was younger. So they actually, as they grow up, they like to delete content of them when they were younger, so I don't think you'll have that problem in the same way. The second is that because you control all the content on your own profile, you can delete whatever you want. And it's not the same as the Google problem that you mentioned.
But I do wish that my poetry from college would go away.
Anybody else have a question? Well, let me just, I guess, finish things by saying, where do you see Instagram in 10 years? And Lena, where do you hope Instagram will be in 10 years?
I think it's really hard to say where Instagram will be in 10 years, given that 5 years ago, we had no idea Instagram would be a thing. But I believe that if you look at the trajectory of Instagram, more and more people are getting cell phones that are connected that can support an Instagram-like experience. More and more people are finding their visual voice through photography and videos. Those photos and those videos are getting richer, higher fidelity, higher resolution, more like a real experience. I hope that someday Instagram can be a source that we all go to know what's happening in the world, much like they do with, or people do with TV today. To be able to zoom in on a moment anywhere in the world at any time, a rich collection of those experiences. 10 years from now, you should be able to zoom anywhere in the world and see what's happening live. And I think that's really powerful when you think about, cultural movements, when you think about how people experience art, when you think about how people experience sports and media. That's the kind of thing that I think Instagram will unlock 10 years from now.
It's kind of what Snapchat is doing with My Story. Do you see them as big competitors?
I think a lot of companies are going after that. Twitter just launched a product that's similar to this. I think Snapchat is going after it. We're all taking advantage of the fact that we now have devices on us 24/7, and we're willing to share the world around us in really different ways. So I'm glad that it's happening, period, and I'm glad that Instagram is taking a big part of it.
Lena?
Well, I guess I hope it continues to be a way for people, for women to express themselves, especially more globally, so that we understand, especially just in my particular set of interests, so that feminists understand sort of global experiences and can really speak to each other's concerns in a more concrete way by kind of seeing what each other's day-to-day lives look like. Like, I love the fact that I can be in communication with a woman in the Middle East via the internet and understand more about her day-to-day reality in a world that's very different for women than mine is. And one of the reasons that we started Lenny Letter was to create a feminist community. And one of our biggest goals is to expand so that we're, publishing individuated Lenny letters in various countries around the world, so we can sort of talk to women, not just about the issues, not just expecting every woman to care about the issues that are happening right here in the US of A, but to really speak to them individually. And I think tools like Instagram are the way that we can understand and connect with people who can understand and connect with them and create a more global and diverse feminist community that's different than the somewhat fractured one we have right now. So that's kind of what I see as the great promise of all this.
And the one thing I forgot to ask you is, who are your top 3 people to follow?
I love following Lena.
Thank
I have
you.
to say that because you're on stage, but I really do.
That means a lot.
The fact that you, I think there are a lot of people who try to put off a specific image on Instagram, and to have kind of like the honesty and just the like unfettered kind of view into your world and your mind, I think is something that a lot of people, including a lot of young women, really they're very thankful for that. And I think that's an awesome addition to the Instagram community. I also like following my dog, Dolly. So yes, there are a lot of dog photos on Instagram, and I'm a contributor. And then, I think Drew Kelly in North Korea, I mentioned him before. Stellar images, but also really moving and powerful to see another culture that we wouldn't otherwise see in mass media.
What about you, Lena?
Well, Kevin checked to see if I was following him last night, and I am. So everyone should know that, and I really love Dolly, too. But I really love following the New Yorker's Instagram. They have a lot of really great vintage photography and access to their archives, and it always gives you something to sort of chew on. I love following this this account Herstory, which is Hersto, Her Story, which is basically like vintage imagery from the feminist movement across the board, and a lot of really cool, like, it's where I found like the picture I reposted of Lily Tomlin with armpit hair. Like, it's just really up my alley. And then I'm following all those Kardashians, those Jenners. I'm liking it.
Well, Lena Dunham and Kevin Systrom, we'll have to end it with that.
Thank you,
Thank you guys
Katie.
so much. Thanks.
Thank you.